Right. This has been referenced publicly, and the problem, unfortunately, young bucks, this is the bad part about journalists, is when something is public information, we don't have to keep it secret anymore, mate. If someone tells us something privately, I'll keep the secret forever, but if it's known publicly, I can address it. So, if people don't know, when the notorious, the infamous FORG1VEN was your teammate, right?
Yeah.
If people don't know, he was always a maniac, right? And so one of the things he would do, and this is so nuts, is he would openly flame people who were his current teammates. And so when he was in Copenhagen Wolves, and I'll say, listen, he was a very good player. I would even say he was arguably an MVP candidate. You know, he was a beast. But I remember him even making comments where he was clever enough, at least, okay, this is his version of tact, to not explicitly say the names of the players he was talking about. But he kept referencing how two of his teammates were like hard stock diamond or something like, because there's another thing, FORG1VEN was always like obsessed with the idea that like you had to be like the best in Challenger as well. You know, like, he was referring to you, right? You were one of the players, as far as I know, right, who didn't really like you didn't ladder that much, right? Or it wasn't the end of the world to not be in Challenger and be in LEC or UELCS, right? What would you say to that? Because obviously if people hear that, I mean, I know fans think, I know it's always easier to tell other people what to do, isn't it? All fans are like, why don't you just practice like a Korean and say, I have a fucking life, okay? Give us your thoughts, because it's going to sound bad when we say it like that. So give us your perspective on it.
First, I think FORG1VEN deployed one of the best and most funny strategies, which was he would usually post something on his Greek Facebook, and then it would end up on the front page of Reddit. He'd be like, I didn't know that there were people that were going to translate it on Reddit.
That's pretty clever. That's pretty shrewd. Yeah.
So he could play like he didn't do anything wrong. But I think my relationship with FORG1VEN was not that terrible. Throughout most of the time that we were playing, there were about 6 times where we had a team vote and we were going to kick FORG1VEN, and then he would carry us on stage, and then on the Monday we're like, let's just deal with this for another week.
Okay.
And he was actually mostly, at the time, he mostly had his eyes set on Coutard, and then for a while on Unlimited, and then later on Amazing. We didn't really have much beef during the split. I guess it came a little bit more afterwards also because he thought I was the one mainly responsible for kicking him.
Is it because you got along personally, you think he kind of didn't isolate you?
Maybe he saw me as the captain and had to keep me on a good side because there was definitely a time, especially the start of 2014 when we had just made the EU LCS, where I was slacking for my life. Like Hearthstone just came out, and I was just playing a lot of Hearthstone, also with FORG1VEN, but FORG1VEN was still grinding, and I didn't take it serious enough, or like I felt like making the EU LCS was my dream, and then the dreams didn't extend far beyond that, and the efforts matched that until we had like a team talk a few weeks into the split, and that did turn around. But all in all, I think I didn't like FORG1VEN, and I voted to kick him on several occasions, not the first few times, but I did, and he thought that I was the main person behind his eventual kicking, which I don't remember, but it could very well have been true.
Now, when you say that, there's another detail people don't know, because even though, like, this is what's weird, because he's obviously been allowed to tell the story, because one thing you tend to do in esports, especially with organizations, is the organization will usually let the player leaving kind of write the storyline. Yeah. So a classic one is they just lie and say, I'm going to focus on school, even though it's like some guy who, again, just plays video games all night, definitely doesn't do school. So usually what you do is you let them say they left. So he claimed, remember, like every year, I'm just taking another split off. And he just kept doing that over and over again, even though what people won't know is, I'm not exaggerating. As far as I know, every single org he was in, I don't know, maybe Gambit, that might be the only one I'm not sure of, but even then I think they did. Every single one either kicked him or voted to kick him. Because the problem with him was, like you said there, that basically he didn't get it. Like, the only way he can stay on the team is he has to be the absolute best. If he's the best, just the competitive part of your brain's going to go, let's find a way to make this work. But the second you don't win the split, or, you have a loss, or you think to yourself, like the classic one in your case, this is the reason why I always told people this story. Like, FORG1VEN did such an amazing job for Freeze in his career. Because what he advertised was, do you like a player pretty good, but with like only a mildly toxic attitude? Freeze is kind of like FORG1VEN light. And then everyone would just bring in Freeze and he would just get the same gig. Like, Freeze himself even jokes and says, he sort of did do that, right? When you say this, give us some thoughts on that, because again, people think he just played a split and he was like, these guys are shit, so I'm going to go and, I'm going to wait out a split, I'm going to go elsewhere. Like, what was he actually like as a teammate? What are your actual thoughts on his skill set? And like, basically, I'm sure you can, like, what do you think of the reasons why he had to be kicked from these teams? Because as we say, he was a pretty good player.
I do think it was a toxicity, and he was just quite aggressive. I have to say this was like 7 years ago, so I don't remember a lot of things. I remember like the overarching things and a few funny stories here and there, because he was a character you could really laugh with, but also really hate. And he got into fights with teammates, and sometimes he was backstage shouting like, "Why the fuck did you throw this game? What are you doing?" It was a fun time. We had to play for playoffs. Like, there was a really weird system. We had to play against Gambit in a best of 3, and the winner would make it to playoffs. In the first game, I think Carter and I kind of carried the game, but it was really sloppy, and then he almost got into a fist fight with Amazing backstage because the game was really sloppy and wasn't clean enough, and it was just like, "Come on, hit me," to Amazing, and they almost got in a fist fight. Of course, we lost the next 2 games, didn't make playoffs, but that was the end of that. It was absolutely hilarious, but he's a guy you could really laugh with, but yeah, he was also very wild when you were losing or not playing well.
What about his actual like game as a player?
He was amazing. He was probably at that time by far the best AD carry, pun intended, I guess, with the by far. He was way ahead of his time. I do think that the way he played the game did not evolve into like 2019. I think when he played on Schalke or 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, like the game completely changed, and it was really easy to counter. People would just blindly push the lanes and open themselves up for jungle ganks. But back then, he would get 50 CS leads, get the first tower, and if we were good at macro, like most teams are right now, we would have probably been way more successful. But that style just didn't fit in the current League of Legends.
Right, obviously you later were with Fnatic and you had a lot of success with Rekkles as your AD carry, right? It's a classic matchup. I know a lot of fans don't want to believe it because they just look at the resume, if you don't have the championships. For them, FORG1VEN can't be in the same category because he doesn't have all those worlds and stuff. So how would you contrast the two? You've worked with both. I know you only technically played with FORG1VEN, but how would you contrast the two after being behind the scenes with both?
Well, I think FORG1VEN was the best at that time, but if I have to make a team right now, or if I had to make a team in 2018, 17, 19, I would... Well, actually, 2017, I think, was still the year of FORG1VEN, wasn't it?
2016 was the one where he did the Worlds one.
So probably up until 2016, I would pick FORG1VEN, but after that, I would probably want Rekkles on my team.
What's the difference then? Because that would surprise some people, because obviously like Rekkles was like an MVP during this time period. So what's the difference between the two?
Well, FORG1VEN was all about winning the lane, just pushing in, hitting towers, recklessly without really thinking about what the jungler was doing. And I think the game evolved. I think teams got a lot better. We can go a little bit into it, how, for example, Mithy made a really big impact on, I think, EU League of Legends as a whole, where having good wave control and being a little bit more controlling about your wave states and understanding that was just way more important. And Rekkles is probably the best AD carry at that.
Sure.